Hey everyone, welcome to the final pickups video of the year. I hope you've all enjoyed watching my videos throughout the year, and I'm ending on a high note. This is all the stuff that I picked up from the most recent gaming market, which I actually did a tour of last week. So go ahead and watch that after this to see the stalls where I got these things from. There's some really interesting stuff, and like the title suggests, most of it is NES related. So let's begin with the big stack of NES games that I've got right here. So first up is Yoshis Cookie, which is a fantastic puzzle game for the NES. And a really interesting fact about this game that not a lot of people know is the fact that the puzzles in here are actually designed by Alexei Pajitnov, who was the inventor of Tetris. So that is a really nice little Easter egg about this game, and it actually plays really well too. It most closely resembles the PopCap game Chuzzle, if you've ever played that. So you have to move the grid, and you have to try and line up the different cookies in the grid to get rid of them, and then when you've cleared it, you move on to the next stage. It's super simple, but it's super addictive, and definitely one of the best puzzle games on the NES, and way better than Mario and Yoshi, or just Yoshi as the NES game's called. So definitely recommend this one if you like puzzle games, and I got it in really good condition too. Just look how nice this box is. And I think it also came with the instructions, yes. And they are a little bit scratched, but not really too bad, so nothing to worry about there. And because this was a late release for the NES as well, it's also in full colour. And it's really cool to see Yoshi's original design in a NES game as well. And the artwork in there is just fantastic too, look at that. How cool is that? So super happy to have this one. Now next up are two games that I was very excited to find, both by Konami. They are Gradius and Life Force Salamander. Two incredible horizontal scrolling shooters, and Life Force as well actually has a few vertical parts too, which is really cool. Both of these games play more or less the same. They've got the same sort of power-up system, as you would expect from a classic Konami shooter. They both play fantastically, and it seems like both of them were actually optimised for PAL as well. I especially enjoyed playing through Gradius on the NES. It feels just fantastic. There is a slight difference with the way that these ones play. So in Gradius you can actually see the power-ups listed across the bottom of the screen, whereas in Life Force you have to try and remember what they are because they just show up as blue squares. But you really can't go wrong with either of these games. They're both absolutely top-class arcade-style shoot-em-ups for the system, and I'm so happy to have both of these for my collection. Next is another classic, this time from Nintendo. This is the original Punch-Out! And of course I'd already played this game many times before on the Virtual Console, on emulators and stuff, but I'd never actually owned a proper physical copy of it, so I'm really happy to have this. This is the version that doesn't mention Mike Tyson, so this was a later release. In fact, I don't know whether the Mike Tyson one actually came out in the UK or not, so let me know down in the comments below whether we actually got the original version of this game. But I do quite like the box art here. It's quite different to a lot of other NES games in the fact that it kind of uses real life people rather than sprites. And talking of sprites, the next two here are two of the original NES releases. So these are what they call the black box games. So we have the original Golf here, back when video games could literally just be named after the sports that they were based on because there was hardly any competition. A really cool fact about this golf game is the fact that they actually reused some of the course layouts in Wii Sports Golf. So that's a nice little nod back to this game, and it actually plays really well too, although I have no idea about golf, so I didn't know what clubs to use or anything. But thankfully, when I was playing these games over on Twitch, some of my viewers actually told me what I needed to do, so thank you for that. And another black box game, and unfortunately I don't quite share the same appreciation for this game as a lot of people do online. This is Ryder, and I honestly thought this game was awful. It controls terribly, the screen is incredibly glitchy and jerky, and it just wasn't any fun to play. It is interesting though in the fact that this was one of the first ever games that actually let you create your own courses, and unfortunately you can't save it on here because there's no battery backup. But it's really cool that Nintendo was experimenting with that kind of user creation element all the way back on the NES as well. And another classic arcade game, this one is the original PacMan, and this one came with the instructions as well. Sadly no box, maybe I'll try and track down a box in the future for these games as well, because apart from Yoshi's Cookie they were all cartridge only, and I would like to try and get the boxes, but they are quite expensive. And I do want to boost my NES collection because next year I'm actually planning to do a lot of videos about the NES, including origin, the history of the system, some of its defining games. So I'm trying to build up my collection of NES games before I get around to doing those videos early next year, so subscribe if you want to see them, if you think they sound interesting, because I've been really enjoying researching for it. And part of my research actually led me to these games here by Codemasters. These are actually 3 unlicensed games. So we have Micro Machines, we have a sports compilation game, and we also have Dizzy as well, which is a very famous game here in the UK, just like Micro Machines is as well, actually. And I was really impressed with how well Micro Machines plays on the NES. It's so smooth, it's so colourful, and the controls are just absolutely perfect. It's actually not a million miles away from the SNES version, which I grew up with. But obviously the most interesting thing about this is the really weird cartridge that it comes with. So these were created to get around the lockout chip on the NES itself. So what you actually do is you put an official NES game in the bottom like that, and then on the other side you've also got this little thing here. So you put it into the system, and this actually pushes up and it pushes the cartridge into the system, but it actually reads this cart instead of this one, and then the code can actually figure out to read Micro Machines instead. It's a really inventive way of getting around the lockout chip, and they also used this for the Game Genie cheat cartridges as well. And it took me quite a few tries to actually get this to work on my NES, which is quite unreliable. But from doing some cleaning of all the pins on here and the contacts, I did manage to get all 3 of them to work, and it's really interesting. And Micro Machines and Dizzy as well were actually really impressive games. And it really does scream old European PC games as well, so it's really cool to have these for the NES. And now for some interesting things that aren't NES related, but they're still really cool to own. Unfortunately, I couldn't actually try this one out because you actually need the original version of the PS1, which I thought I had in this room, but it must be up in the attic somewhere. So maybe I can try and look for that at some point next year, but let me just take this out of the box. This is a really interesting thing that I've been looking for a long time. This is called the Game Booster for the PlayStation 1, and basically, as you can see there, it lets you put Game Boy games into this kind of memory expansion thing and put that in the back of the PS1 system. If you have a look at the back of the box there, you can see that it actually goes into the expansion slot on the back of the console, and you can actually play original Game Boy games on there, which in itself is really interesting. But the main reason that I got this is the fact that it actually comes with a game included, and because this was made by Daytel and I'm trying to track down all of the unofficial Daytel Game Boy games, technically this counts as an unofficial Game Boy game. So here's what it looks like. Really interesting piece of kit. So you put your Game Boy games in the top there, and then this bit at the front actually goes into the back of the PlayStation 1, and somehow the PS1 knows to boot that up. There's no CD or anything, that's the only thing that came in there. It did actually come with some of the original leaflets though, so I'm amazed at the condition of this as well. So there is this leaflet here, which looks like it was some kind of warranty card, so you could actually send this off to Daytel and answer a few questions to kind of find out what consoles you're interested in and what other things you think they should work on next. So that was really cool to see. And they also had the original instructions in here as well, which are all in pristine condition. So I'm really interested to try and get all this hooked up and working at some point next year. So stay tuned if you want to see what the Game Booster can actually do. And if you are interested in hearing more about these Daytel games, then click on the eye in the corner of here, or have a look in the description when you finish this video, and take a look at a video that I made a few years ago when I finally managed to track down all of the other ones, apart from this one. And staying on the topic of Game Boy games, and probably the most exciting thing that I picked up from the show, apart from that what I just showed then, this is so cool. Here, I actually managed to get a really nice set of original Game Boy magazines, and I've been loving reading through these at lunch during my lunch break at work, and they are just so cool to kind of see what people were excited about, have a look at the previews and the reviews, and trying to build up my idea of what sort of Game Boy games I want to collect next. There's so much really cool stuff in here. There's a few accessories for the Game Boy, there's some really nice full page adverts for the games as well. And it kind of got me thinking back to just how good gaming magazines were back in the 80s and 90s. They're so jam-packed full of really interesting stuff, and you can really tell that the people writing the articles really cared about what they were writing, and you could tell the excitement in here as well. And this was before the internet and stuff, so people had no choice but to find out things about the games that they were interested in through magazines like this. And it is a really important piece of gaming history, and I do plan to do a video about my love of video game magazines in the future too. I've got a huge collection, but they're all stored away at the minute, so one day I plan to get them all out and do a video on them. But for now, here's just a few more to add to my collection of original gaming magazines. So there we go, that was all the stuff that I picked up at the Birmingham Gaming Market. If you want to see what the actual market was like, then click on the video over here and watch my full tour of the show. I had a great time there. It was honestly one of the best markets of the entire year, so definitely go ahead and watch that. And as always, thank you so much to all of my Patreon supporters. And of course, as it's the 24th of December when this video goes live, Merry Christmas to you all, and thank you so much for all of your support throughout the video. There's one more video coming this year that I'm really excited for, so subscribe, ring the bell, and look forward to that one next week. Goodbye.